Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to RWBY Vol6 episode or chapter 3. So last we left off, Jin, the genie of the relic, was about to reveal, apparently, the backstory of Salem and Ozpin. The biggest secret that Ozpin has been hiding from us. And from Team RWBY. So this has been a long time coming. Ozpin said in Volume 1 that he has made more mistakes than any man, woman, or child there is. And once we found out that he is reincarnated over and over again, it's like it came to make sense to us. Like, yeah, of course, if he's living all of these different lives, he's going to have made all of these different mistakes throughout those lives. But it was always on the tip of our minds, like, what was the biggest mistake he could have ever made? If he's made all of these different mistakes throughout history, what was the one thing that he regrets more than anything? The one thing he did that was the worst of the worst. And, of course, we all had our theories, of course. One of them being that he had something to do with Salem, or the Grimm, or something like that. And for those of us who did theorize that, it looks like we were right. Now, we don't know all the details yet. All we know is that something about Salem's past and how she became the way she is connected to Ozpin. Because RWBY specifically asked Jin, what is Ozpin hiding from us? And in response, Jin shows the rest of them Salem. Before she was like she is now. Like kind of creepy and witchy. Showed her as kind of this ordinary girl. And that's where the episode cut off. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. I've seen some reactions to this, of course. I've seen the reactions of the likes of Rarity Dash, Potter Brony, Murder of Birds, and a couple others. And pretty much everyone has that same reaction when that part comes along. It's just that shock, that surprise. It's like, wait, really? I think I saw all three of those. I know I saw Murder of Birds, and I believe I saw Potter Bronies. Now I'm not actually sure if I saw Rarity Dashes. I don't know. I saw a few reactions, I know that for sure. Either way, yeah, it's just, at this point, I'm really interested in this. This is like the big thing I'm interested in most. Now, I'm still hoping that the season tells us what happened with the moon. The intro still makes me think that's going to happen. I mean, I don't know, it just kind of feels like everything in the intro has meaning to it. And showing the moon in its full form and then shattering, I think that's trying to tell us something. Maybe that's connected to Salem and Ozpin. But last episode also gave us something else that I do need to cover. Even though I'd rather not. Cinder. Cinder is still alive. And luckily I was not the only one who was upset by this. I was not the only person who found this to be unsatisfactory, because her death in the last volume just seemed so certain, so finite. I mean, again, as I kind of said, I think I said it in the last my afterthoughts of the last reaction, or maybe it was in comments or something, but I mentioned that the only real piece of evidence that that the Salem is Still Alive group had, prior to this season, of course, that Salem was alive, was the fact that we never saw the maiden powers next to her body and go to someone else. That's really the only evidence that she survived. And Then there was the entire deal about the main poster for the series and how the artist of it listed Cinder in the tags on DeviantArt. Um, that could have easily been a misdirect and everything, but I mean, obviously, it was proven true. I just feel like it's a bad decision all around. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I just feel like having Cinder have survived that is bad. I do not think she needs to be defeated by Ruby or Sean. I do not think it needs to have that kind of perfect catharsis end to her story. And I don't think we even need to go too much into depth about her character. Not every villain needs a big, tragic, eventful backstory. We're clearly going to get something with Salem. It's definitely building to where we're going to get something with Adam. Especially since, I mean, heck, he had a trailer prior to this season. So it's definitely building to something with him. I don't think Cinder needs it. I do not think Cinder needs anything. I think it would have actually been better to have Cinder remain mysterious. Not have her backstory told. Not explain why she wants power so much or whatnot. So I think that the fact that they do seem to kind of be going that way to try and characterize her a little more, I don't like it. I don't think it's necessary, and I think that, like, again, having characterizations for bad guys and stuff isn't necessarily bad. Giving them backstories and motivations and all isn't bad. But sometimes I just like a villain who doesn't have that. Sometimes I like a villain who doesn't need to have any tragic backstory. Who doesn't need to be like some, like, really, how do I put it? Who doesn't need to be a character that has something to make you like them. You could just like them based on how they're presented. Like, it's not necessary. And it just feels forced, to be honest. But as I said, I will give it a chance, and if they do something good from it, if they take it to places that end up being good, then it's going to kind of be like one of those situations like Tristapin from Wakfu, where I still very much disagree with the fact that Tristapin was brought back from the dead, especially since it completely ruined his character arc in Season 1. But they did good stuff with him after, so I can kind of forgive it a little bit. And that's the only thing I think they're going to be able to do with Cinder at this point. They're either going to make me forgive it a little bit by doing some good stuff with her from this point forward, or it's just going to completely validate my hate for this. Now, there was the aspect of this little Miss Malachite. And someone else, actually I think a couple people, brought up in their reactions that, in fact I think SOS Bros might have been one of them, but a couple people brought up that Malachite is the last name of the twin sisters from the Yellow trailer. I don't remember their first names, but you know, the ones who kind of talked in this like Valley Girl accent, who were fighting Yang and working for Junior. Their last names were apparently Malachite. Now, I don't know if there is an actual connection there, but we really haven't seen anything of those characters, and we only saw Junior once outside of the trailer. So, I mean, I think they were shown in that same episode, but they just kind of had a little appearance in the background. So it'd be interesting if they were brought back and if Little Miss Malachite was related to them. Otherwise, I just don't know. Little Miss Malachite, just on her own, seems like a really interesting character. The entire Used to Be Afraid of Spiders line reminded a lot of people of Widowmaker from Overwatch, which I definitely see. I have seen the Overwatch animatics, or cinematics, so I definitely understand that. And it's just like, she has this intimidating presence, but she doesn't come off as, like, she doesn't come off as a character who does much on her own for herself. More as one who just delegates it all to all those under her. As she says, she made the spiders work for her. She kind of has that charisma and enough of an intimidation factor to her that she can make others do her bidding, but doesn't actually act on her own. In other words, she's what Roman was not. Roman actually could fight on his own. He actually did. He actually got in on the action. I think Little Miss Malachite's the other kind of leader villain. She's the one who doesn't get in on the action. She leads. She delegates. So it'd be interesting to see if that's proven wrong or if it's substantiated in the future. But they did mention that someone else, a big guy, was looking for Team Ruby and Juniper and all that. And there's a lot of speculation as to who that could be. It could be Hazel. Some people are saying maybe Adam, although Adam's really not that big. Heck, it might not even be a bad guy for all we know. We assume it is, but it might not be. And then it was also brought up the question of maybe they'll see if someone's looking for Cinder. And people have been saying like how in the opening and stuff, there's a brief moment where if you pause it, you can see the reflection of a parasol in Cinder's sword when she's hooded in the opening and she's fighting someone. Apparently you can see the reflection of a parasol, and people are saying that it's maybe Neo. And so now the theory is maybe Neo is searching for Cinder. I don't know why, and I don't know why they'd be fighting. I don't think Neo would have a reason to blame Cinder for Roman's death. I don't know. I don't know, but maybe we'll find out. Hopefully Neo returns. I'd love to see Neo return, but yeah. And so yeah, in the meantime, we're going to get started with this. There was just a lot to talk about before this. So I'm excited. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, this episode was pure lore. It was the backstory. And it answered so many questions, but also raised a couple others. So first off, I want to say that there were both moments in this backstory that adhered to a lot of stereotypical ideas, such as the fact that the main villain and kind of the one of the main heroes is were in love once upon a time, and that their love fell apart, and that's how they became mortal enemies. That is a very stereotypical thing to do. But they did some different things with it too. Like the fact that Salem, the one who became evil, was originally basically a damsel in distress. You pretty much never see a damsel in distress character go bad. Most of the time, the damsel in distress character is a very innocent, very kind, very likable character. I think the only exception I've personally seen to that would have to be Fiona in Shrek, who was supposed to be kind of turning the damsel in distress idea on its head, where she wasn't your typical damsel character. And, I mean, there's others, of course, but that's the big one I can think of at the moment. The point is, most of the time with a damsel character, they don't do something like this. So Salem started off as just this ordinary girl who, very much like Weiss, had a terrible father. She was rescued from her horrible life by Ozma, a skilled warrior, and they escaped and fell in love. The freedom that Salem wanted, she found in him. And he found purpose in her. And so they they fell in love. But Ozma eventually grew deathly ill and passed away. Salem sought the gods to help to bring him back, but the god of light refused her. She went to the god of dark without telling him that, as basically a way to go over his head. It's kind of like when you ask your mom something, she says no, so you go to your dad instead, and you don't tell him that mom said no, right? But instead of the younger brother asking, oh, like, did you ask my older brother first? No, he's like, no, I'm okay with this. Let's do this. So he brings back Ozma, but the God of Light finds out, and it's like, nope, not happening. They fight for a bit until the God of Darkness finds out that his older brother, or that he was being tricked, and that his older brother had already said no. And at that point, he's just like, yeah, okay, I agree with my brother here. And they turn on Salem. Salem is given immortality as punishment, so that she'll never be reunited with Ozma. And basically, she's given this ultimatum. If you can truly learn to understand the difference between life, or the importance of life and death, and how death is needed, and how it is important for life, at that point, we will give you release. So instead, she gets bitter about it and turns the entire world against the gods. And the gods don't like this. They wipe out all of humanity. It's like, you know what? Fuck it. We're done with you. You all suck. We don't want you anymore. And I'm just going to say, as a Christian, this makes me think of the flood, the great flood from the Bible. See, in the Bible, God calls upon Noah and his family to build a giant boat, or an ark. Technically, it's debated on whether the ark was a boat or like what an ark actually was in that time, which was more of a chest. But that's not important. He was tasked to build the ark for him and his family. And they would be the only survivors of a great flood that wiped out the entirety of humanity. And they would repopulate after that. It was him, his son's wife, his wife, his children, and his children's wives, his sons' wives. I believe that's what it was. I believe so. But all of the rest of humanity was wiped out, and that kind of makes me think of this. The gods wiped out all of humanity except Salem. Except in the Bible, it wasn't being done to teach Noah a lesson. God had had enough of humanity. Humanity was corrupt. It was horrible. The people had turned against his will. And so he basically was wiping out everyone who was like that, leaving only those who were still good, Noah and his family, to basically start over. And they kind of did it different here in RWBY. They definitely had the kind of similarities with wiping out humanity, but instead it was to teach Salem a lesson, to leave her alone. However, I guess they changed their minds, because they did bring back humanity as well as create the Faunus, which were basically humans just with animalistic traits. And they also brought Ozma back. The God of Light told Ozma, I'm going to bring you back, but you will not be able to die either. You will be reincarnated after every death, but this will happen because you have a goal. Your goal is to unite humanity. To unite all of humanity together. Do so by using these relics I'm going to give to the world. And at that point, bring the relics together. And once humanity's united, use the relics to call us back, and we will judge the earth. If humanity is truly united, we will restore everything. If you call us back with humanity not united, it will be wiped from existence. For good. Now, when he came back, he ended up finding Salem, and they reunited, they got together, they fell in love again, and they started hiding things from each other. Though, they kept certain parts of what happened secret. But they fell in love, they even had children, but eventually he began to think more and more about how, well, she had been going crazy. I mean, because she had taken a dip in the pool of Grimm, and that changed her physically, and I don't actually think it changed her mentally, because I think the mental changes had already been in place. She had already become increasingly conniving, savage, just evil. And that kind of was held back a little bit once she and Ozma reunited. But after Ozma started to notice these changes and started to realize he had to go with his plan, and she was trying to convince him otherwise. And she convinced them to become gods of the world and stuff. He realized he had to stop this, and he was going to take their children, who I guess were the original maidens or something, and they were going to leave. Because their children had magic. And they were going to leave, but then she stopped them and attacked. And it didn't actually explain what happened to the children. Because she attacked him right there, and he was fighting back. It didn't say if the children got away. I mean, we can possibly assume that they were killed in the crossfire, which is terrifying to think about. In the end, she saw it as a betrayal and killed him. I mean, granted, she knew he'd resurrect, and he did, and basically it started their blood feud. At first, he was really depressed about it, really mourning and everything, but eventually he picked himself back up and started to go after his goal again. We can assume that this is where he started to build up the academies. He started to create huntsmen and huntresses as a way to fight back the forces of Salem and the Grimm in order to be able to accomplish his goal of uniting humanity. And by allowing Faunus at his schools, he started to kind of help along those bonds as well. But one thing to note is, like, if his children, if him and Salem, if their children were the maidens, like, were the original maidens, that doesn't actually make sense. Because they were colored like they would have been the maidens, right? But the story of the maidens, if that was supposed to be true, which we were told it was, by Ozpin and Crow and all of them, then the maidens sought out a wizard, and he gave them the power. So I'm assuming that their children weren't the maidens, but I guess were just colored that way. Maybe I don't know. Now here's the thing to question, though. Oz didn't have magic. Ozma didn't have magic, did he? I don't think they ever mentioned that. Salem didn't have magic either. So there's still parts of this story missing. How did Oz get his magic and be able to pass it on to others? How did Salem get her magic, the ability to control Grimm and everything? I mean, it didn't say in the story that she had the ability at that point to control the Grimm. It never actually said that or anything, so... Though she did seem to have some kind of power. It also hasn't really explained where semblances and all of that came from, where all of that started. So there's still a lot of questions. A lot of questions that we still don't have answered. But we've started to get those answers, a lot of these answers. And we found out what happened to the moon. I knew it was going to reveal it in this season, because in this volume. Because, again, in the opening, it shows the moon full and then shows it shatter. And we find out it's... I don't know if I'd say it's unsatisfactory. It's just not at all what I expected. Because it's basically when the gods basically said fuck all and just left Earth, they basically just crashed through the moon in the process. Now, another thing to note, this is something that Ozpin was trying to hide from everyone. Why? Was it just because he has that deep connection to Salem? That they used to be lovers? He didn't do anything wrong. He was in the right in all of that. Back when he was Ozma and everything, he was in the right to do everything he did. I mean, hiding things, and the only thing wrong he did was when he at first hid things from Salem and then went along with her plans at first. But he went back and started to work for the gods' plans again. But other than that, it's like that's minor in everything. Salem was the bad one, pretty much the entire time. So it's like, if we're supposed to believe he was hiding that solely for the fact that he went along with Salem's plan at first and became kind of like gods to humanity, I don't know, that just seems a little silly to me. I don't know. It just... I hope there's more to it than that. I hope there's more of a reason why he was hiding that. Because while this was very big information, it was huge for not only just the lore and story of the universe in which this takes place. Also, I love how we got why this world is called Remnant. That was fun. That's a fun little factoid. But I just feel like there needs to be a bigger reason for why Ozpin was keeping that specifically hidden. I don't know. But we got a lot of big, important info in this episode, and I'm not sure if we're quite done. The ending didn't feel like it was the end of the story that Jin was telling. Like, I'm going to mute this real quick, but if we go back to the ending here, like, it ends with him, like, finding out that there's, that according to Jin, there's no way to defeat Salem, right? And then he kind of falls to his knees, and that's just where it ends. That didn't feel like it was like a straight-up ending to the story. I think there's going to be more to Jin's story, and I think it's going to start explaining a lot more about what his goal has been after finding that out. I think we have a little bit more that's probably going to come in next episode, but that, like, not all of next episode's going to be as lore-heavy as this one was. That's my guess, at least, because there's still a few things that need to be clarified. Now, we already basically knew that the wizard who gave the maidens their powers is Oz, so we still have to find out how he got those powers. We have to find out who the original maidens were, and, like, all of the details on why he trusted them with the magic. And we still have to find out the entire deal with semblances. Like, why do people have semblances? Everyone has a semblance. Everyone. And just in general, aura. Why does everyone have this aura? Is it just a remnant of the magic that humanity used to have? I don't think it's quite that simple. So there's still a lot of questions we have yet to answer. And I don't know if we are going to answer them next time or not, but I'm kind of hoping we do, or at least a number of them. Because again, it didn't feel like the story was at its end quite yet. We'll see, though. We'll see. Either way, this was a a great episode. Like I said, it gave us a lot of great lore, gave us a lot of backstory, and I'm just hoping we find out a little bit more, as well as why Ozpin felt he needed to hide this. Because, I don't think he really needed to. Again, he was in the right. He's on the right side of history with this. Salem was in the wrong. Salem was the one who turned to evil because of her selfishness. And I mean, I get it. Love, in a lot of cases, is selfish. Love can be terribly selfish. And she did love him. I truly believe that. But she became corrupted by her selfishness and other just dark thoughts and emotions. And eventually, though she still had that love, she became power hungry, greedy, insensitive to others. So, yeah, I'm interested. I'm definitely interested. This is a great episode. I can't wait to see what others have to say about it. Now, as I mentioned, I am recording this on Monday. You're seeing this on Saturday or later. Stupid hair. But yeah, I'm going to have a lot of time to think about this. I'll probably see this again a couple more times. But this is getting to the point where this series is just not what you really expected it to ever go to. Like, when you start the series, you don't expect it to go into talk of these gods and everything, and of this horrible evil who was once just an ordinary girl who just wanted freedom. Like, no, that's not where RWBY really began. And I honestly say, I don't know if this was ever Monty's plan for this series. But honestly, I can't be happier with where this has gone. I think this is a phenomenal series, and it just keeps getting better. And I hope that it continues to do that as it goes on. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for the future. Tell me in the comments below, though, what you thought of this episode of RWBY Volume 6. Why did I almost say 7 there? RWBY Volume 6. What did you think of this episode, this chapter? What did you think of all the lore we got? And do you have any theories about where this is going to go? If you've already seen Chapter 4 on Rooster Teeth First, please do not leave any spoilers. I wish to remain spoiler-free. And I wish for others on the channel who want to remain spoiler-free to not be spoiled in the comments either. So thank you all so much for tuning in. And for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.
And though you've come through many obstacles, shed tears along the way, you're still standing, live, love, laugh.